speaker, and we are pleased to present her. Kelly Fryer has announced to be one of the candidates for the governorship, and so she, excuse me, comes from, she's running kind of a grassroots campaign. She comes from blue-collar roots, but yet has 25 or maybe more years experience as a CEO and running and working with groups in leadership sort of roles. So I'm not going to say much more about that because I'll let her tell you about her background. Kelly Fryer.
Thank you, Dean. Yeah, I don't think I need that at all. Podiums usually just make me feel very short. It's so good to be here with you today. Is the volume okay?
Yep.
So, as Dean said, my name's Kelly Fryer. I announced on January 9th that I am a candidate for governor of Arizona. That's why I haven't been here sooner, just in case you were feeling left out. You're actually one of my very first stops. I am currently serving as the CEO of the YWCA in Southern Arizona. The mission of that organization is ending racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. I've been the CEO there for the past 5 years. We've experienced extraordinary growth and impact, and I've spent the last 3 weeks since I announced transitioning the organization into this interim period. I've been there long enough and to be able to earn a sabbatical. And so on February 1st, I started a sabbatical with the YWCA so that these next months can be my full-time job. On February 3rd, what is today? The 5th. On February 3rd, I kicked off what I'm calling a real State of the State tour. January 9th, does anybody know what January 9th was, why that was significant? January 9th was the day that Doug Ducey, our current governor, came to Tucson to deliver his State of the State speech. And he did it at an event that was sponsored by the Tucson Metro Chamber of Commerce. And in order to hear Doug Ducey's State of the State speech, you needed to pay $125 to have lunch. And I didn't go. I usually go to these things, and I didn't go because I don't think I can take one more year of hearing Doug Ducey give a State of the State speech that is so completely full of lies. Because what he says about the state of the state and the reality of the state of Arizona are completely different things. His rhetoric doesn't match his reality, and I just couldn't stand it. Also, I didn't have $125 to spend on lunch. How many people do? That's the kind of governor that we have right now. And so I announced on January 9th, and on the 3rd of February, I kicked off the real State of the State tour. And I intend to go to every corner, every county of this state, to places where the governor never goes, for sure, and frankly, where candidates don't usually go, to really listen to folks around the state, to hear their stories, and to help tell those stories right now, right? Because this isn't just about an election that happens in November. As far as I'm concerned, this is about what's the conversation that we're having in the state right now. This campaign, my campaign, is an opportunity for us to tell the real story about what's happening in Arizona right now in a way that people have to pay attention, to make visible what has been invisible. And so my very first tour stop was in Sells, Arizona. I spent Saturday on the Tana O'odham reservation because it was the 80th annual Tana O'odham rodeo. And I was in the parade. That was amazing. I got out and walked the 2 miles of the parade route so that I could really meet people. There are thousands of people come out for that parade. And then we spent the day on the fairgrounds talking with elders from the tribe and from tribal leaders, and really listening to what life is like. And then I took video and I took pictures and I posted those on all my social media accounts, and really am making a commitment to people in the state to make sure that every story gets heard. Because we are living in like this weird moment where our governor and our elected leaders engage in doublespeak. They say things that aren't true, like, I'm the education governor, when in fact you're the dude who's killing our schools, right? So this is about telling the truth in a way that people have to pay attention. Day 2 of the tour was in Ajo. We drove in from Ajo this morning. That's a long drive. And the roads aren't all so good. Doug Ducey, by the way, talking about real state of the state. The roads kind of suck out here. So we were in Ajo, and we spent the day meeting with all kinds of people. We met with 80-year-olds who have lived in Ajo their whole lives, who remember, when the economy there was really kind of booming, and have watched as the state of Arizona has slowly just abandoned that town and those people. And then we met with people who have only been there for a couple years, who moved there because they kind of like the entrepreneurial spirit of what's going on out there. I don't know if you've been out to Ajo lately. There are some really interesting entrepreneurial things happening. There's a growing artist community that is living in Ajo, and people who are really kind of scrapping together new small businesses, but they're doing it without the help of the state. And everywhere I go, I'm asking this question. When's the last time the governor of Arizona came to visit you?
Good question.
And the answer is never. And then I'm asking, when's the last time a candidate for governor came to visit you? And I know that's different for this group, but so far on the Real State of the State tour, the answer's been the same. Well, not yet, not till now. So that's my commitment. That's why I'm in this race. I think that we need to make visible what has been invisible. We need to tell the story of what is really happening in the state of Arizona. We need to make sure that all of us get seen. All of us. Folks that are struggling to figure out how to live on retirement income. Folks that are trying to figure out, how do I get my kids a good education? And one of the things that I heard in Ajo, it's amazing when you actually stop and listen to people. One of the things I learned is that if you're a 16 or 17-year-old in Ajo and you want to get a driver's license, there's no driver's ed. Not in the schools, no place to get driver's ed training. So you hope your parents have a car and can take you to the parking lot at the Dollar General and teach you to drive in the parking lot. And then, when you think you're ready, you have to drive to Phoenix, which is a 2+ hour drive, to take the test. That's the only place. You can't get a driver's license in Ajo anymore. There used to be a DMV there. There used to be a DES office. There used to be a really robust community health program. All of those services have been cut, and the DMV has just been slashed. So you have to drive 2+ hours to get to Phoenix and then back again. And by the time you do that, and you come back and you put gas in your car and you eat food on the road, you could spend $100. And if you get there and you fail the test because you didn't have driver's ed, you have to do it all over again. So an incredible percentage of young people in Ajo just don't get driver's licenses. And if you don't have a driver's license, it's awful hard to get a job. And guess what else you can't do? You can't vote. This state, this governor, has abandoned people all over this state. Elderly people, kids, people who live in rural communities. I think it's immoral. And I think we need to change it. So that's why I'm in it. I don't think I'm going to say anything else. I think I'm gonna leave it there, and I mean, I will say, I didn't mean I won't say anything else. I mean, I wanna hear your questions, and then I will answer them, because I know you probably have a lot of them. I just know, because I'm a former preacher, I could go on for hours. So what questions do you have for me?
Oh, no, go ahead. I like your enthusiasm and I like everything why you're running, and I, obviously wholeheartedly agree with it. How can you turn that passion into reality?
Well, if by that you mean how can you win?
No,
No.
I'm sorry. How, once you're in office, thinking positively, how can you change all these things? Or what plans do you have to change these things that you see? Too many candidates I see, oh, well, my first day of office, I'm gonna do this, but then reality hits in and they realize they can't do it without, this group's approval, they can't do it without this legislator approval. So what kinds of plans do you have to turn your dreams into actual working solutions?
Right. So one of the reasons that it's so difficult to get anything, even to imagine that things can be different, is because we have been fed this lie that there are scarce resources. That is a lie. Scarcity is a lie. There are plenty of resources, but those resources are going into the pockets of people who already have resources in the state through irresponsible tax credits and irresponsible tax cuts. And our current governor and this state legislature is literally bankrupting the state of Arizona. That is irresponsible, and it is based on a falsehood. So I'm gonna approach my work, not from a place of scarcity, but from a place of abundance. There are the resources that we need, there is the brain power, there is the willpower that we need to solve every problem that we face. But if the right people aren't at the table making those decisions, it'll never happen. And if we have a governor that keeps picking our pockets to give our money to his friends, it'll never happen. So the first thing that we need to do is to change that culture. And when I think about the kinds of problems that we are facing, let's take the environment. And you look at water, right? You look at the water crisis. And if you go onto the state website and you look to see who's on the commission that the governor has put together to solve the water crisis, it's a long list of people that are coming from big companies and the mines and the utilities and, elected officials who are the governor's pals. I'm not seeing the smartest scientists that we have from the University of Arizona, from NAU, from ASU. I'm not seeing those folks at the table. I'm not seeing members of the tribes at the table. Let's get the smartest people that we have in this state working together to solve those problems. So 1, we need to get rid of that scarcity mindset. 2, we need to be sure that the right people are at the table. And 3, we need to help the voters of this state activate and engage so that we're holding our elected officials accountable to do what we want them to do. Because right now they're not listening to us. They're listening to, you know who they're listening to. They're listening to a guy named Dave and a guy named Charles, who have more money than God. They're not listening to us.
Can you tell us your vision for education in this state when we see the erosion under Betsy DeVos of public education, and the concerns we have is more money to private charter schools?
Thank you. Education is one of the top issues that we face in this state. No question about it. So in the budget that I present, there will not be a single dollar for private schools. Not a single dollar for private schools. Our taxpayer dollars should be going to schools where the taxpayers actually govern them. No dollars for private schools. Secondly, this is K through 12 education. Secondly, we need to, we need to hold the charter schools accountable to the taxpayers, and that is not happening right now. And I'm going to tell you, I believe that if we start holding those charter schools accountable, we're going to make them a lot less profitable. And that's the only reason those charter schools exist, is because there are big public for-profit companies, most of them outside the state, who set up these bogus nonprofits to start charter schools to make money off of Arizona taxpayers and off of our kids. So we can regulate those charter schools in such a way that the profit margin goes way down. So they're going to become much less attractive to those big companies. Secondly, we're going to take those dollars that have been going to private schools and charter schools, we're going to invest them in our public school system so that our teachers have the freedom and the creativity and the resources to be able to get our schools into a place where they can put those charter schools out of business. Because that's why they exist. I get it. As a parent, you want your kid to have, you want them to have the best possible education. We're going to make sure that the best possible education in every neighborhood is the local public school. So that's K through 8. In addition to K through 8, we need to be investing in vocational technical training in this state. I found out there's like one licensed electrician in Ajo. Like one licensed plumber. And hundreds of people who don't have jobs. Let's provide vocational technical training so that people can actually do jobs that make living wages. The fact that, I don't know, I think I'm probably about the same age as some of you, and we had vocational technical training in my high school, right? Why don't we? Why don't we now? Is there less money somehow in this country and in this state? No. That money's been diverted into for-profit schools and for-profit prisons, and it's been drained out of our public schools. So we need vocational technical training. Third, K through 8, voc tech training. Third, our community colleges should be tuition-free. We need to completely turn around. Like, now we don't give any money to our community colleges. 0 state funding, you know this. Our community colleges should be fully funded and tuition-free for kids in this state, for people in this state. And our universities, we should hold our university system to their original charter to make tuition there as close to free as possible at our state schools. That's what I think about education.
Sorry, but, so how are you going to do that?
Well, I love that question.
Red state.
How are we going to do this? How are we going to do it in a red state? How are we going to do it when there's no money? Again, I refuse to believe that there's no money. That is a lie. It's just that the money is going to the crooks. It's not going to the people. So, as the governor, right, I can propose a budget that makes those priorities clear. Now, if we have a legislature that looks like it looks right now, we're going to be limited in what we can accomplish in the first couple of years, right? But we can make their life miserable. And that's what I'll do as the governor. I will make their lives miserable. Because I'm not going to go have $125 a plate talks at the Chamber of Commerce. I'll go there. But I'm going to go to Ajo. And I'm going to go to Sells. And I'm going to be here in Green Valley. And I'm going to be in every corner, in every community in this state as the governor, working to engage and motivate and inspire people to be a part of making change in this state happen. I think it's too easy for people who get elected to office to just sit in their office. We need leaders in the state who are actually building the progressive movement, who are inviting and engaging people to participate. And together, we can make their lives miserable. Let's take over the legislature. I'll do a sit-in with you at the state capitol until we're able to replace those people who are in office right now, who are in the pocket of some outside donor, instead of listening to what the people want.
So I have a follow-up question, and please confirm to me if my assumption is correct, namely, Arizona's teachers are way down on the bottom. Now I've heard say again and again he would raise the salary and so on. From what I heard from you, my assumption would be that you raise that significantly so we can attract, and I'm not saying that they're not good teachers in Arizona, but we need some more new blood. That's my feeling.
In Ajo, at their public school,
Yeah.
almost a third of their teachers have been brought in on a special visa to bring people from other countries because we don't have the talent in this state to teach. Almost a third.
Wow.
The fact, and this is what I'm saying when I say that Doug Ducey, his administration, is not only financially bankrupting this state, it is morally bankrupting this state. And there's a great article in the Arizona Republic today, really looking at, he's going around claiming that that Arizona has increased funding to education higher and faster than any other state, in parentheses, that hasn't raised taxes. So first of all, he's really narrowed the pool. Secondly, when you look at actual per capita spending, I mean, he's right, but it's such a fine line of truth that it's not, you can't even call it true. In terms of per capita spending for students, the state of Kentucky spends way more on their students than we do here in Arizona, per capita. So this is what I mean when I say Doug has this he is the master of spin, man. He takes one little kernel of something that's kind of true and spins it out into this story that just is not based in reality. Arizona has not increased funding for teachers more than any other state. That's just false. Our teachers are fleeing the state because they can't afford to stay here. And those that have to stay here for whatever reason are taking extreme measures. There's a young woman who teaches lives in Tucson and teaches in our public schools. A young woman who just signed the papers to have the operation that will sterilize her. Because she knows that as a teacher in Arizona, she will never make enough money to support her own children. In Vail, they want to put teachers in tiny houses because the teachers can't afford to live in housing in the community where they work. This is obscene. It's unethical, it's irresponsible, it's immoral. So don't tell me we can't fix it. Let's quit putting so many people in prison in Arizona. Let's end those private prison contracts. Let's stop diverting public money into private schools. There's plenty of money to do what we want to have done. And the people of Arizona want it. If you look at the surveys coming out of ASU, the Morrison Cronkite polling, 69% of voters in Arizona say that we want the state to fund full-day kindergarten for every kid in the state. 69%. You think you're ever going to see a bill passed to have full-day kindergarten for every kid in the state funded by the state of Arizona? And will you ever see Doug Ducey sign that bill? No. Because they're not listening to the people. And I'm talking people, not just Democrats, not just progressives, people. 69%. So there's voter will. There are good answers for how to fix these problems. We just have to get the corrupt leadership out of office in this state. That means y'all have to work hard. We all have to do what we can do. This is what I can do. This is what I can do.
I've heard a lot of hired people say, they don't have kids in school, so why should they pay more taxes to educate or to provide public schools? Can you address that?
So the question is, how would I respond to a senior who says, I don't have kids in public school, why should I pay? I have a couple answers. Number one, I was a Girl Scout when I was a kid. And we would go camping. And my troop leader, who also happened to be my mom, taught us the Girl Scout motto, and I think the Boy Scouts probably share it. Always leave a place better than you found it. So I would say to seniors out there who don't have kids, who don't want to pay taxes to have good schools, shame on you. Shame on you. But second, just realistically, we are all connected. You know, when you look at where seniors are in this country, where people, over the age of 60 are, except for their house, the only asset they have amounts to about $10,000 in savings. Well, that means that most seniors in this country are going to depend on Social Security. And if we don't have people coming out of our schools with a good education and good jobs who can pay into Social Security, you're sunk, man. I mean, you're in a heap of trouble. So seniors, it's in your best interest to support our public school system. That just makes sense.
The best argument I've heard when talking to Republicans is one of our speakers said something about, as far as business is concerned, we can't attract good businesses into the state because of our education is so poor. And therefore, the chamber, they don't want their kids going to our schools, et cetera. So I thought that made more sense to them. What do you think?
There are so many good reasons why we should all support our public school system.
Well, I mean, we understand
Yes.
that, but.
Yes. That's true, although, Amazon, for example, right, was looking for a new home, 500,000 jobs they're promising to bring to their next location. And they recently released a list of 20 cities across the country that have made the next cut. There isn't a single city in Arizona on that list. 20 cities, not a single one in Arizona. Why? Education is one of the reasons. Infrastructure. They want to be in a state where there's good infrastructure. Well, the state of Arizona got a D this past year in terms of our infrastructure. Our roads, bridges, water pipes, a D. Our governor is taking money from funds that are supposed to be going to fix our roads, the HERF funds, and using them to cover up the deficit that he made by cutting taxes that people don't want. This is the business guy, right? This is the guy who ran, we all elected him, right, because he said he was a good businessman? Well, I hear rumors about what happened to the business he owned before he came and became the head of the business of the state of Arizona. I don't know what's true and what's not, but I can tell you, he's proven to be a terrible businessman since he became the governor of Arizona. So there's a whole long list of reasons why companies don't want to locate here. Education is one of them, but there are a lot of them. Quality of life is one of the things on Amazon's list. When we're talking about communities all around the state where, a third of the teachers have to be, it's a big mess. It's a big mess. Doug Ducey's made a big mess of this state. This election is too important to lose.
I just want to know, when you were talking to the people in Ajo and its cells, what kind of response did you get from them? Because my thing that I cannot understand is everything you're saying here affects everybody unless you're super wealthy, and yet we just keep putting these people back in office and it just keeps going on and on. It's like we're drinking the Kool-Aid or something. So when you talk to the people, how did they respond to you?
Well, I want to answer your question, but I want to just say this. One of the things that I often hear people say is, why do we keep electing these people? Right? Like they're bankrupting our schools, they're letting our roads fall apart, they're not investing in public transportation, they're not taking care of our water. Why do we keep electing them? We haven't elected them. We haven't elected them. In the primary elections, in these mid-year elections, about 24% of registered voters actually vote. And let's say half of those are Democrats and half of those are Republicans. So we're talking about maybe 10% of registered Republicans actually voted for those guys. So we haven't elected them. It's one of the reasons I refuse to say, like, all my Republican neighbors are bad. I think most of my, 9 out of 10 of my Republican neighbors didn't vote, which is the same, that's true on our side too. So we didn't elect them. But if we show up, Republican, Democrat, Independent, if we show up, if we participate, if we vote, if we run, we'll win. We will win. It's one of the reasons I jumped in, right? Because I want people in this state to get the message loud and clear. You don't have to have been in the legislature for 8 years. You don't have to be a fancy, college professor. You can run for office. And even if you can't run for office, you can work on a campaign, you can volunteer, and you can certainly show up and vote. So part of what this is about is really inspiring people to participate. So what's my reaction been in cells in Ajo?
Yeah.
When I say, hey, I'm Kelly Fryer and I'm running for governor, they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, really. That's cool. They've never met a candidate for governor, much less a governor before. So they're inspired. We had a great meeting last night with a bunch of fairly new activists in Ajo, women, not just women, but women who were activated with the Women's March last January, took a big packet, and they've committed to get 500 signatures on my petition in order to get my name on the ballot. We all need to have 5,000 valid signatures to get on the ballot. So we're going to pull 500 out of Ajo. They're ready, they're fired up, they're ready to go.
Political question. I'm an old line Democrat, state committee, the whole bit. What is your history?
Which history would you like to know about? I'm just kidding. What's my history in politics?
Politically.
I was a Democrat in the womb. My grandfather was a union organizer for the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union back in the day, and he was a union president. In fact, his gavel sits on my desk. My stepfather was a Teamster. When I was about 7, I met Robert Kennedy when he was on a campaign swing for president through my hometown. I've been a Democrat my whole life. I'm going to be honest. After what I thought was the lame response of the Democratic Party, the way that 2016 came down, and I was really frustrated. I was really frustrated with the party. And when we moved to Bisbee in April, for the first time in my life, when I registered to vote in Cochise County, I registered as an independent. It was like my own personal little protest. I mean, I didn't think anybody would, nobody would ever know, because it was just me registering to vote. But it was just like, I'm mad. Well, you can't get anything done as an independent. And besides, I'm a Democrat. I've been a Democrat since I was in the womb. And so I switched my registration back. Protest over, time to get to work. Back there.
To follow up on Jerry's question, have you had experience working with legislative bodies, sort of being the director of the body?
Experience working with legislative bodies. My experience in politics, I was pre-law when I went to college, planned to go into politics, and it was a political science economics major, and have always been a political junkie. I ran a short-lived and doomed to fail congressional campaign in Illinois, and doomed just because of Illinois politics. My congressional candidate was killing it, and because of that, he was running against a Blue Dog Democrat, Dan Lipinski, who was best friends with Mike Madigan, and this was during the redistricting. Drew my friend John out of his district by like a half a block. So it was an inglorious end to what was a really fun campaign. And then I ran Arizona List for a year during the 2012 election cycle, and just had a blast. Got to meet people all over the state of Arizona, organizing, fundraising, and doing some work with candidates. So I have experience helping people get elected to office. This is the first time I've been a candidate.
So to follow up,
Mm-hmm.
I know you said you decided to take your sabbatical in January, but I'm assuming that you thought about running for governor before that, or did you? And why did you?
Folks have been talking to me about this since the Women's March last year. I had an opportunity to speak at the Women's March in Tucson, and folks in the community started talking to me about it then. It really became a very serious conversation, I would say early fall of 2017. And it, you know, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say this and I think that this is partly connected to the fact that I'm a woman. It took me a long time to get over myself. You know, I think, you hear these stories about women. Men tend to apply for jobs that they know they can do, and women apply for jobs where they've already done everything on the list. And there's just this, it took me a little while. And you would think, as somebody who spent a whole lot of my career in a field that's about empowering women and helping get women elected to office, it was kind of an interesting thing to go through myself. Here's what happened. On January 9th, my website went live, the video that I did went live, made the announcement, and I went on and just looked at my website, and I read my resume. And then I went and I looked at the websites and read the resumes of my very esteemed opponents in this primary race. And I'm like, I'm the most qualified person to be the governor of Arizona. Because of all the people running on the Democratic side, I'm the candidate that has 25 plus years of experience leading people. Leading people. I've been the CEO and the leader of organizations for 25 years. Leading people to develop a shared vision, to develop a shared sense of what's important. Helping people who are very different from each other see and do what matters together. And leading them to create change, positive change that impacts the community. I'm the only one that has that kind of experience. I spent my whole career doing that. And I think that's why I ran for governor, because I'm not a legislator. I'll have a really good chief of staff who knows all the ins and outs of how to work through the legislature. Somebody like Steve Farley, for example. He knows that stuff backwards and forwards. But in terms of leading people, helping people in the state develop a shared vision and believing that change is possible and that together we can solve the problems that we face, that's a governor. That's me.
How do you view collective bargaining rights in this state?
5% of workers in the state of Arizona are part of organized labor. It is the reason that wages are so low and that workers in the state who work full-time jobs, sometimes more than one full-time job, can't afford to support their families. It's an abomination. We need to support organized labor, we need to support worker centers, and we need to use an innovative approach to our tax system to reward companies that actually create good jobs, pay good wages, and provide good benefits, rather than promising to do all those things, which is what we do now. If you come in, you're a new company from outside, we'll give you all kinds of tax breaks if you promise to do a bunch of stuff. No, we're going to reward companies that actually treat their workers fairly. Good question. My grandfather would kill me if I said anything else. And he's not alive anymore, so that would really be scary.
So if I have been active listening, you said that it was only 10% Democrats that voted. I think
That's
I
a
think
rough
your-
estimate.
I think your quote was, we participation is not a new phenomenon.
Right.
As long as I have been in this country. My father who left here, 40 years ago, he could not believe that a President Reagan said that the majority voted for him when in fact only 34% was total, and that was during a presidential
Right.
campaign. This is a mid-year.
Right.
So it seems to me that the most important thing, and of course we are all saying this, we have to get new Democratic voters, democratically leaning people voting for our party. So what are you doing in that respect?
So I'm hearing from people across the spectrum. I'm hearing from old-time, long-time Democratic activists and donors, big Democratic donors. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I can't tell you how many big Democratic donors I've heard say, I'm not supporting candidates anymore. And you can see that in the very anemic fundraising that the two other candidates have been able to do so far. And why? Because they're tired of candidates promising that they've got the magic formula to get elected, and that maybe one day they'll get elected, and then maybe they'll change things. On the other end of the spectrum, I'm hearing from people in cells and in South Tucson say, I'm done. Because it doesn't matter who gets elected, they don't pay any attention to us. They only show up here when they want our votes. They're not really paying any attention. So across the spectrum, what I'm hearing people say is we don't really trust candidates. We're not even sure we trust the party. And so here's my message to you. This campaign is not about an election that will happen in November. My campaign is not about an election that will happen in November. This campaign is about changing that conversation right now. This campaign is about making sure that all people across the state feel seen and heard, that their stories are getting told. That's why I started my campaign in cells. It's why I'm spending time in places like Ajo, really listening. And I'm promising people, this isn't about someday. This is about right now. I'm giving you my campaign as a platform because I'm going to talk about the issues that matter to you. I'm not hiring expensive consultants to tell me what I can and cannot talk about because, whatever. Because this is how all the other Democrats have ever done it who have lost. I know, it's kind of sad funny. It's kind of sad funny. This campaign isn't about listening to expensive consultants. It's about listening to the people of this state. Really listening and making sure those stories get told. That's my number one commitment. That's the main thing this campaign is about. That's why this is about the real state of the state. I also happen to think it's the only strategy that can win that election in November. Because only if people feel like they really matter, like they're really being seen and heard, only then are they going to bother to participate in this process. God bless you all, who just keep doing it like year after year after year, hoping that it will be different. I don't know where we'd be if it wasn't for you. But most folks, I don't know, like they need to see that they're seen. You know what I mean? So that's what this is about. I also think it's the only way we can win. We're certainly not going to outraise Doug Ducey. I kind of want to tell him, look, let's just call a truce. You do it with what you got right now, I'll do it with what I got right now, and we'll just go at it, right? Let's not suck up millions and millions of dollars that could be going to things that really matter. I don't know. It's like a David and Goliath thing.
Yeah.
Did I tell you I was a pastor?
What's the difference between you and Steve Fry?
That was the question?
Difference between Steve.
What's the difference between me and Steve Farley? He's very tall. If you mean what's the difference in terms of our policies? Well, actually, the answer that my wife told me I should give to that question is, Kelly, the answer is you're going to win.
It's a good one.
But in terms of policies, I can tell you what I believe. I can tell you what my positions are, and I will answer any question you ask me about policies straight out. I don't know exactly how Steve and or David and I, where we part ways on policies, because they don't have that stuff up on their websites, and that kind of stuff's not being made public. So I don't know exactly what all their policy positions are. I can tell you what mine are, and then I can tell you what mine are. And I think that's one difference, because I'm not playing it safe, right? Because my number one goal, isn't about some election. My number one goal is changing the state. And this campaign is one way to do that. Becoming governor is one way to do that.
Write the website up there?
The website is friarforarizona.com. friarforarizona.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and probably other places I don't know about yet.
Is that Friar for Arizona? Or
All
F-O-R?
spelled out, F-O-R. So it's Friar, F-R-Y-E-R, for spelled out, Arizona spelled out, .com. So I hope that answers your question.
That's a big one.
How do you feel about sources of campaign donations, particularly small donations versus corporate?
Well, one of the things that I think Arizona, what do I think? I think I'm going to get a lot of small donations. That's what I think. In fact, on our real State of the State tour, we're asking people across the state to help fill up the gas tank. $10 gets us another mile down the road. $10 gets us another mile down the road. Believe me, I'm not going to have any big corporations chasing me down with checks.
Do you accept them if they're?
I think I would take it on a case-by-case basis. There are some small businesses that, for a variety of reasons, would rather give a check from their business. Am I going to accept a check from somebody who owns a couple of local restaurants? Absolutely. Yeah. But like I said, this is not a big moral dilemma I'm going to have to face.
But the reality is, money helps win elections. And when you're facing the Koch brothers and ALEC and the Goldwater Institute, and we can go on around here, with this dark, dirty money that's out there, you need millions of dollars to run a campaign just to get your ads on TV. And so that's been a dilemma for my party for a long time. Like, do we go to Wall Street and get all this money? Or, because you need money to run these campaigns. You just, and to win, Sells and Ajo is nice, but Maricopa and Pima County are where the votes are. Really. I mean, if you look at the demographics of the state, and I know you know this, that's where you gotta win the votes, right?
That is where you have to win the vote. You have to win Democrats are going to win this election because people vote. People who have not voted, vote. And those people are in Ajo, and they're in Sells, and they're in South Tucson, and they're in neighborhoods up in Maricopa County where nobody ever bothers to go knock on doors. Because why? Because they can't write big checks, right? But there are more votes still win elections. And I know, right? And hearing people say this, how do we get those votes? Well, we don't get them. We listen to people. This election has to be about people. So do I need money? Yes, of course. I have to raise money. It costs money to drive 10,000 miles, even if you drive a Prius, which I do. But it's obscene how much money is being spent on campaigns in this state. And this is the reality that we have today. I'm 100% supportive of the ballot initiative to get dark money out of elections in Arizona. It's not going to help us in this election. So what's the key to this election? It's not, for Democrats, it's not going to be how many dollars we can raise, because we will never be able to raise enough to outspend Doug Ducey. It's got to be a different strategy. I think we need different candidates. I think we need candidates that look different and sound different and have a whole different kind of background and have experience really helping people believe, right? Helping people believe. That is what's at the heart of our funk. It's not money. It's that we're losing hope. And that is so wrong. Because again, if you look at what the people of Arizona actually want, the majority don't want the border wall. The majority of Arizonans say, I'd be okay if you raised my taxes in order to give more money to public schools. The majority want to see our community colleges funded. The majority support rights for LGBTQ folks. The majority support a woman's right to control her own body. This is who Arizona is. It has been stolen from us by crooked politicians and billionaires from out of state. And this campaign is about taking it back. So thanks for listening.